Hello my friends, this is the Owl. So if you saw the last community post, things are a little rough right now. But hopefully this can inject some cheer into the proceedings, because here we go. At last, we're past the halfway mark, and now rapidly heading into the... Okay, so this is, believe it or not, Where Shibuya Goldfish, a manga about huge predatory goldfish taking over a part of Tokyo, starts to go a little off the rails. I am not kidding. There is a moment in Volume 6 that kind of marks the story taking a sharp left turn, and then, oh boy, is this a ride that doesn't stop until the end. I would say crazy train, but that does not do this justice. You'll see what I mean. Oh yeah, one last thing. This is kind of a long arc, and there's rather a lot to talk about here, so rather than trying to cram 3 volumes into one video, I am gonna snap this sucker in 2. Trust me, there is more than enough to do that until we hit the final arc in Volume 9. Anyway, let's do this. Back at base, with the captured princess and 50 cc's of pure hand wavium, Elisa is saved, along with the others who are infected by the toxic pheromones spread by the princess. Hajime and the other 5 survivors of the raid get a hero's welcome, and, oh right, one of the girls sick with the fish ick was Ishiba. Okay, so, small correction from last time, or rather, something that I learned. See, there was that big fighting game looking dude, who was one of the many characters in the previous arc, killed off, that turned out to be significantly more interesting than anyone in the main cast. The manga kept calling him Ishiba, and I was adamant that it was mistranslated. Well, shitfire and save matches, it turns out that I must have had my head halfway up my butt. There is absolutely a name, Ishiba. It's just rare. While yes, the manga did call him Ishida at one point, I think that was the typo, and that Ishiba might have been the correct one. While I haven't found the raws, someone who allegedly did confirmed that ba, not da, is the correct reading. Live and learn, I guess, because this is not a name that I have run into in the wild, and I've spent most of my adult life in Japan. Regardless, this is his sister or something. She's fine now, but is not important to the story. That's the long and the short of it. They do mourn the dead though, especially the loss of the Sable, who was something of a force of nature and their anchor in every fight. And of course, yes, Sable is 100% dead. There is no way that we'll see him again. Not a chance, says someone who has never seen a movie or read a story before. However, the news is not all good. It's actually mostly what is known in scientific parlance as complete shite-arse. The fish are mutating in all sorts of weird ways, and somehow the 2 Titan goldfish we saw at the end of Volume 5, you know, those final boss-sized monstrosities, are commanding an army of princesses, laying eggs all over the place. The situation is only becoming more dire. Chika, however, despite being, you know, a little off, plans to figure out how to kill all the fish by using the princess, while everyone else can, well, smell crazy on her. If she can get rid of the fish, they would only be too happy to help. We get a bit of background on Chika, as well as, okay, so her assistant, the androgynous and retiring cow, which is short for Kaoru, if you remember, and is not a riff on her weirdly fluctuating breast size, refers to her as Chika-ne. We've talked a bit about honorifics before. Chan and the less used and more childish Tan, for instance, are friendly and casual, albeit slightly effeminate in most contexts. Sun is neutral, Summer is respectful, and there are oodles of others, generally depending on the formality of a situation as well as hierarchy. Ne doesn't translate perfectly, but it's used by girls or younger women in general to refer to older women in a way that is both friendly and somewhat respectful. Although it's not typically something you would hear in formal situations outside of very close relationships. It means something like older sister, but not necessarily familial, if that makes sense. Kao could just as easily have said sensei, but that might have come over a touch cold. Ne here suggests admiration, and something of a friendship despite a superior subordinate professional relationship. Japanese honorifics are actually a really bloody interesting part of the culture. Feel free to look into them more on your own time. Regardless, Chika is a highly respected, if eccentric, scientist, and we get to see her at work, with it being difficult to know if she's just kooky or if she's completely off her tits insane. I do really like how she wants to find a way to tame the now paralyzed and I guess partially vivisected princess, so she could ride around on a flying goldfish, something I frankly never thought of before, and now I can't not think about it, because that sounds like a lot of fun, and also definitely a way to get served first at food trucks. And you would certainly give attempted hijackers a surprise, although feeding the bloody thing could be challenging. Unless there are like South African numbers of hijackers. Where was I? Oh right, we see the two of them get a little contest going, with Chika challenging Kao to figure out a better way to kill the fish than her. Which is interesting and something to note moving forwards, as it implies that Kao is actually pretty smart in her own right, at least on par with Chika. Meanwhile, the other survivors are taking 5, waiting on the experiments to be done, hopeful that Chika can provide at least some inkling of a plan. And well, you'll see. "3 days later." No, I'm not going to use that clip because everyone else does. You know the one. We see the conclusion of Chika's research. She's figured something out, but also notes that every egg the hundreds of princesses lay has a very high chance of mutation. There is no telling what sort of crazy powerful things are going to be coming at them out of the darkness if this keeps going. Thanks, Freddy foreshadowing. She also notices a small white stone inside of another fish. I wonder, anyone who's spent any time angling might know what this could be. Before, holy fuck bollocks, what? No, seriously. It takes a lot to jump scare me with a still image, but that managed. And yeah, quite a surprising death if you, like me, expected Chika to be more important, or perhaps even more likely another surprise villain. This can't possibly be a nod to Sam Jackson getting jump scare eaten in that one silly shark movie, can it? I doubt it. Still, that really caught me by surprise. Kao is now naturally distraught that her friend and mentor died like that, and is also confronted by the somehow regenerated and rampaging princess. Also, because this allegedly terrible manga likes to work my emotions like a speed bag, we cut back in time to see Kao's childhood. She, and I'm gonna say this right now, boy did this resonate with me, was one of those people who is interested in everything, but kind of good at nothing. She was clumsy, socially awkward, gloomy and withdrawn, before she met the eccentric Chika, and they formed a fast friendship as a pair of perpetual weird outsiders. Kao then became her assistant, finally finding something she could be good at and a place in the world. Which, yeah, as a man who, even in his 40s, still hasn't figured out quite what he wants to do with his life. Woof. Meanwhile, not only is the princess up and about, but there are numerous other fish inside the train somehow, to the horror and astonishment of everyone else. It's absolute frigging bedlam, but we see that the survivors of the raid have actually become skilled fighters, almost Sable-esque, going completely ham on the fish, and they're able to save Elisa and a few others from the sudden attack. It is still complete anarchy. Fire, death, and destruction. What the hell is going on? And yes, we won't be learning more about what exactly happened here for quite some time, unfortunately. Later, we see a battered, bruised, and singed group of survivors trying to figure out how it all went sideways so fast. How did the fish get in? How did the princess get free? Regardless, it's a gigantic mess. The lab is burned and completely ruined, Chica is dead, and thus all of her research has gone with her. Even worse, their stronghold is no longer safe. Worst of all, with Chica dead, they have lost any hope at beating the fish. Well, wait. Didn't she have a mousy little assistant that does seem to grow gradually more prominent mammary glands the more we see her? I'm not kidding. Look at the way she's drawn. It's odd. However, Kao says that no, Chica kept her plans secret from even her. Although, when she thinks hard, she half remembers something, but cannot quite grasp it. She does remember Chica trying to tell her something as she died, presumably the plan, but due to the trauma of the moment, is unable to recall what it was she said, no matter how hard she tries. With no obvious route to success, the electrician declares that they need to abandon base. They begin making plans to leave the train and look for some sort of new safe haven, as this place is not going to be safe anymore. For some reason, and yes, I get it, too many characters and plot reasons, they resolve to split up and do their own thing, rather than the intelligent move, which would have been to go as one unit. Kao, meanwhile, is racking her brains, trying to remember what Chica might have told her about her plans, and what those last words were. When Elisa shows up, they chat for a while, and it's actually not a terrible little bit of characterization. The takeaway is, Kao herself is bloody smart, but has extremely low self-esteem, and doesn't believe she could find a solution on her own, but also cannot remember what Chica might have told her, and the harder she tries to remember, the less she does. We also see that Elisa, in turn, is overwhelmed with survivor's guilt. A dozen odd people died to cure her, and while yes, she's back on her feet, she's also about as useful as tits on a fire truck. What the hell could an aspiring idol even do in the fishpocalypse? Motivate people? I'm not kidding, that's kind of her role. Kao, on the other hand, is way smart, and if she knuckles down, yeah, here we go, Elisa gradually, spoiler, becomes a master of talk no jutsu, telling the distraught Kao to forget Chica's solution. Couldn't she think of a solution on her own? Right? Everyone else joins in, telling her that yeah, she is absolutely their last hope. If she can't think of a way to fix this, nobody can. So, likely channeling her dead mentor, she tells them, okay, now shut the hell up. She needs to focus. At the very last, standing up for herself a little bit, which shocks them all, Kao does seem to finally be growing some claws, and damn it, worst manga of all time, stop being genuinely fun and interesting. No, seriously, I think volume 6 is where I really started to enjoy myself. Shibuya Goldfish isn't even close to perfect, and the main character is a complete and damp bread sandwich. But there are so many fun little character beats scattered throughout, the art is solid, the panel construction is interesting, and the humor often lands. It really does go to show you, there is no such thing as a bad story, only bad writers. Anyways. Sometime later, The man on watch rushes down the tunnel towards the trains, yelling that a large swarm of fish is on the way and they need to go like yesterday. Sure enough, the fish attack arrives like a damn Zerg rush, and then suddenly, the fish basically begin exploding as they're struck down with a huge amount of horrible looking status effects, bursting ulcers, rot and pus everywhere, reminding me of... Okay, so there was this movie, right? A small coastal town where everyone starts developing these weird, gross diseases. It gets nastier and nastier, and it turns out that it was pollution-mutated sea bugs, essentially eating people from the inside out. Really gory but fun, although the pacing and structure were a complete mess, and the overall message was about as subtle as a Jordan Peele movie. Anyone know what that was? Let me know in the comments. We learned that, yeah, this was Cow's doing. Goldfish, due to the extensive inbreeding needed in order to create the pretty and funky critters we keep as pets, are far more prone to getting sick and far less resistant to these illnesses, so she built a chemical agent, a pathogen, that'll basically inflict a ton of different fish diseases onto the goldfish simultaneously, killing them basically instantly, albeit really messily. That's kind of cool. Oh, and she finally remembers what it was that Chica told her as she was dying. Oh boy, it is time to break out the handkerchiefs, people. Because, again, stop being really good, manga I'm supposed to hate. It's implied that Chica was, in fact, completely unable to come up with a plan. Nothing she could think of was even slightly viable. So her last words to Cow, rather than a plan, were simply, "I know you can do it." Cow then passes out from exhaustion, her job done. Dude! Sometime later, we get our next goal. Cow says that she could easily make more of the pathogen, but she would need specific supplies that would be easiest to obtain from the university hospital, and for some reason they thus decide to split off into two groups, their excuse being that it would make it easier for them to move undetected. They do have a small amount of pathogen left, but without the supplies, there's no way to produce enough to kill all the fish. The electrician also gives Cow the weird stone-like object Chica found inside one of the fish. She says that she's not sure what it is, but will investigate later, presumably after the mission. And yes, the two groups then separate off to meet again in 5 days at the university hospital. This specifically does seem to be a name change reference to one campus of the Tokyo Medical University, which does appear to have a hospital in Shibuya, although it appears in the manga in a way that makes me think the author is playing around with some spatial logic to make it all work out. In this story, it's in Ugawacho, a very upmarket and crowded part of Shibuya, near the incredibly famous Yoyogi Park, and spoiler, we're going to be spending quite a lot of time in Ugawacho, with this main quest being put on hold for a good while the manga sits in a corner eating shrooms. Regardless, we now have a goal and a through flow for our characters as they separate. We do see the electrician musing that Sable might have found... he refers to a mysterious but unnamed third person that Sable might have gone to for medical attention had he survived. The party is basically our main characters, with the other characters going off and doing their own thing. Mio, Elisa, Hajime, and Kao head off to the hospital at the very heart of rotting Shibuya, and we then get some really ominous foreshadowing as we see that the JDF, I think this is another way of saying the SDF, which is a whole can of worms. We'll explain that more if the chance arises. Regardless, they have been absolutely wiped out. Yeah, you have no idea what is waiting for you in Ugawacho. 2 days later, we see the main party struggling to find a way to the hospital. Thanks to the titans overhead and the tons of princesses laying eggs, there are just hundreds, thousands of fish everywhere. But with the help of the poop flares, they are able to impart battle and mostly sneak through to Jinan, a fashion district close to the park, probably best known for the incredibly iconic Mori structure, as well as the headquarters of NHK, Japan's national television company. They do their best, but due to the sheer number of fish now in the area, it seems to be mostly impossible. Oh, and this is neat. Sometimes we see things go dark, only to realize that it's one of the titans floating overhead. Man, those things are freaky. Seriously, take any sea creature you can name, blow it up to, I don't know, moon size, and it becomes a Lovecraftian abomination. They're actually... Okay, so it's a little tricky as someone who never really lived in Tokyo to understand where everyone is. But all you need to know is that they do find themselves in Utagawa, neighboring Jinan, which puts them fairly close to the hospital. However, the area is just so heavily infested that it's difficult to make headway. We see the party taking shelter in a nondescript store of some kind, musing that they've used up most of their countermeasures and that Hajime looks sick. Uh-oh, Cow notes that the fish have become more aggressive and more coordinated, as well as some other aspect of their behavior becoming worrying, but she doesn't specify. She only says that she needs to finish making her pathogen with all possible urgency, and this again does not bode well. Oh, and just as importantly, they are out of food, and their situation is starting to look dire. Fortunately, this doesn't take long to figure out. They obtain one of those little gas burners, man those things look useful, as well as some instant ramen, and this gives us a nice bit of levity and some downtime to set us up for the absolute nightmare that is soon to come. As they eat, Kao explains the plan and the various pitfalls, also answering a question that I had in regards to the pathogen. The reason she couldn't just make a contagious superbug is that the fish mutates so rapidly, she would risk just creating an even more powerful fish that is immune to, or I guess possibly even spreading disease. Seriously, who's running this show? Abatha? There's a deep cut. Instead, they need to produce a large amount of pathogen and distribute it over as wide an area as possible, as rapidly as possible, to kill as many fish as possible. Okay then, I don't know what that's gonna do to the Titans, but then again, I don't know what would, short of a tactical nuke. Their final goal, Yoyogi and the hospital, lies through some very difficult, tightly packed and infested terrain. So, they resolve to wait until the evening and they bed down. And this kind of marks the turning point for the story going completely bananas, as I mentioned at the start, and we will not return to normalcy until, frankly, the manga is over. Just you wait. That night, day, whatever, during nap time, Hajime has one absolutely bizarre, Kafkaesque dream. It's, there is no way I can do this madness justice, so I'm just gonna say that it's a prolonged sequence that can be summarized as all of his friends are eaten by a goldfish that turns out to have been him all along. Thanks Freddy foreshadowing, but also, what the hell? Also, the goldfish was us all along. Worse yet, when he wakes, all of the girls are gone, and he's feeling way more sick. Well, as long as you aren't feeling sick and full, I guess. He explores, finding some mildly worrying signs. Large amounts of fresh blood and something that looks like a dead woman behind a counter. But before he can investigate, absolute chaos erupts outside. Some of the fish are singing children's songs. Others are screaming and zooming around like Baby Owl that time she ate half a Kit Kat she found in my pocket, toddlers. But many just plummet down and crash into the tarmac, killing themselves. What the hell is going on? Did the fish get into the bath salts again? Before he has much time to muse or even search for his chums, Hajime finds himself pursued by several grotesque and badly deformed, likely mutated fish, and is driven into another part of the building where he hides, before spotting a pair of SDF soldiers walking by, one carrying their badly wounded comrade. However, out of nowhere, the younger one shoots the injured older soldier through the head, then leaves. Yes, it's a mercy killing, but it's also, where? Before, crap man, that's the second time you've got me in one volume, Manga, popping up behind Hajime. Yeah, that's not a face you want to see on anyone, let alone someone with a gun. Especially once he takes off his helmet, revealing him as an eerily beautiful but still kind of wrong young man. Meet Mibu. Oh man, Mibu. This guy is a trip. You will see. Also, is that supposed to be a Shinsengumi reference of all bloody things? We do not have the time to explain the Shinsengumi, so just Google it. Despite his very unpleasant initial impression, Mibu approaches Hajime with enthusiasm, astonished that not only has he survived this long, but how far he's traveled. Hajime does correctly identify that there's something not right with this chap, but with his friends seemingly AWOL, Mibu invites him to join his own party of survivors, especially when Mibu tells him that earlier on that day, a girl dressed similarly to Elisa came to them injured. To this, Hajime agrees, hoping to reunite with his missing, but hopefully not late friends. We quickly see that Mibu is, oddly enough, both very Sable-esque and nothing like him at all. He is a cheerful warrior who takes on huge numbers of fish by being a combat expert and also being willing to basically do anything with anything. But note one important difference. Sable all but demanded independence of everyone around him, while Mibu is the stark opposite, demanding obedience. There is an extended sequence showing Mibu's group, which will introduce a few new characters, but yeah, this manga has an overabundance of bloody characters. Very few survive long enough to be relevant, and of those that do, many are just quietly forgotten about by the story, so if any survive long enough, I'm sure we'll get to know them. The only important thing they mention is another individual by the name of Uncle Yukino, the cop who died in Volume 1. However, by the time they arrive, okay so, one of these survivors, I think it's implied that she's mentally ill, opened a door that she was not supposed to the absolute shattering horror of everyone else, and while we don't see what happens next, we do get to see the aftermath once Hajime and Mibu arrive. Blood and goldfish droppings everywhere. Well shit. Thinking that Elisa might be here but injured or in imminent danger, Hajime charges down the stairs. To the surprise and also grudging respect of Mibu, clearly the damp young man is not quite as damp as he first appeared. To his horror, Hajime sees a female shape being menaced by an, okay, I can't believe I'm about to say this, a surprisingly normal-looking giant flying man-eating goldfish about to bite her. He dives in, but unfortunately is too late to save her as the goldfish eats a large portion of her head. Oh no, of course they just killed off Elisa randomly, which is why we never saw her face. We see the two who were discussing Uncle, a pretty older woman, and a scarred, bald-headed tough guy hiding in a locker, and they mention that, this goldfish is something different entirely, and something that absolutely should not have been released. It floats towards Hajime, who is now trying to butt scoot away and about to die. Then what? Sorry all, I think I've calmed down now. What? Yeah, no, that's my face too. What in the name of holy fucking shit hell damn it is that thing? Because that's an arm, a human arm, coming up out of the goldfish's mouth and gently brushing at Hajime's face. And that, aside from a very long side story about Iori Sanjo, remember? That similarly damp lad with survivor's guilt from volume 5. He's basically Hajime Mark II. And here's Elisa, Kuze, I think it's implied she died, and there's Baby Owl. Yes, it is. So let's cut off the silly goldfish manga before Baby Owl attempts to eat it. And yeah, that caps off volume 6. I wasn't kidding when I said this manga goes right off the rails here. And trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet. We'll get to volume 8 next video. And I think that's where the manga hits peak insane, while still being sufficiently of this reality for it to be impactful. After that, we're into magical girl apocalypse levels of wibbly-woo, folks. You will see what I mean. I am going to go and see what Baby Owl has discovered that's crinkling in the background, so it's time for a short break.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, friends. So, with all the madness, including a surprise guest appearance from Baby Owl and that armfish, do you know what isn't completely insane? The FrightRanker Patreon. Well, maybe it's a little insane, but there aren't any armfish. Probably. And if there are, they'll be small ones. I promise. So, becoming a patron doesn't just mean supporting us and allowing us to produce more of the content you enjoy, or buying Baby Owl things that go crinkle. It also comes with all sorts of benefits, like early access to most videos, my book, exclusive patron-only chat on the Discord, emotes, probably the odd exclusive video here and there, and for higher tier patrons, direct input on what manga I cover in the future. Remember, White Whistles can commission a one-shot, Aubades can commission a deep dive. Alternatively, if you want something one-off, you could commission a piece of art from Mrs. Owl. She does really bloody good work. All links are, as always, in the description of the video. And that's my spiel, pluggity plug, pluggity plug. Back to the manga. Volume 7 starts, you know what? This cover. This cover right here. This is how you sell a manga. No wonders this bonkers thing got 11 sodding volumes. Hell, if I saw that looking at me from a bookshelf, I would buy it. Anyways, the rest of this arc is mostly going to be set in Ugawacho, which perceptive viewers may notice isn't the full term used by the manga. The manga refers to it as Ugawacho. See, cho is something you will encounter often when it comes to place names in Japanese, ditto shi, machi, and a few others. Cho is one of the most common, and is, interestingly enough, a historical term referring to a very specifically sized area of land. The exact dimensions of which, I'm not going to try and make sense of shaku here. If I recall, 5 square shaku is around 1.5 square meters, not exactly. It's a pig to convert, and as nobody has used shaku for hundreds of years now, we can just skip that nonsense. Although, to my American friends, don't get me started on your silly bloody units. Feet, inches, yeah, come at me comment section, I'm ready this time. Long story short, you will see cho or chome in place names and addresses pretty much all the time. As here, Ugawacho generally just means Ugawa area or Ugawa district. We open on an... so I do plan on explaining this in more depth when we get there in Higurashi, but for now let's just say kind of mysterious but really nice traditional Japanese mansions / compounds found here and there in the city, on the outskirts in general, or just outside of towns. It could be something that belongs to a rich family, the Yakuza, or they could be a private onsen or hotel not open to the public. We see the powerful but kind of derpy looking dude and the hot blonde lady from earlier. We will learn their names later. The only thing of especial interest here is the kooky old man, who it turns out has a thing for goldfish. More than just a thing, if you get my drift. Yeah, dude, it's a cute image, but you're gonna need a shower after this. And yes, there's a deep reference I'm not gonna make here. Or maybe Troy McClure for us older folks. Seriously, why is this a thing in media? Is this just widespread in Hollywood? I don't know. Anyways, back in the main story, Hajime is absolutely baffled and horrified by the armfish that, yeah, I'm gonna use that Moon Knight meme I've been saving up, which may actually be the best meme of all time. I at least think so. The fish, which not only used his name, but then begins to babble absolute gibberish at him that is, scarily enough, almost comprehensible in places. What the hell is going on? Because this manga went from dirtfish memes go brrrr to no, this is actually legitimately scary. Hajime is saved in the nick of time by, okay, I don't know where this trope came from, the bald-headed but dumb strongman with a flavor saver who jumps in and kicks the fish away before being attacked by another one, displaying astonishing brute strength, holding it at bay himself. But he's then, I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth, gently kicked in the face by a child's leg that emerges from the fish's mouth, which then proceeds to gouge into one eye. Ouch, the hell is going on? The blonde lady shows up and tells them to run. This is an enemy that, well, there's a reason that door was closed, is all I'm saying. Sure enough, these things turn out to be, okay. There is a movie that I watched the other day in a haze of toddler sleep and flu meds that I am still not sure if I dreamed. It was some really gory but borderline pretentious ask me what it means thing, where this actress takes some kind of drug that makes a younger version of herself pop out of her back for her to live vicariously through, and they wind up getting more and more corrupted body horror style. Seriously, what the hell was that thing? Quite possibly a fever dream. Anyways, these fish seem capable of rapidly regenerating from any injury, which causes them to mutate further, with one losing an eye, but having it replaced with a second face, and the other fish grows a human eye. This is really cool. Again, I know some people really do not like this manga, but it goes places, finding new ways to use goldfish as more and more horrifying adversaries. Mibu suddenly appears with a, damn, I don't know gun, so let's call it an R1 assault rifle to annoy the gun fans in the comments section, and sprays bullets into the fish, but they just continue to mutate and regenerate before he whips a grenade at them, and this appears to do the job. Yeah, you know how I keep saying this manga is way better than it has any right to be? It's because it keeps being true. That sequence was wild. We learn that the bruiser is named Saidaiji, and while he and the blonde lady were knocked about by the blast, they're fine, just pissed. Hajime is surprised that Mibu came back, but also notes that he, in his own way, is really formidable. He's not quite the berserker Sable is. Instead, he's clearly a professional killer, despite his pretty boy appearance. And yes, any anime or manga aficionado can probably chart this character's course already, guessing his arc. Mibu's group emerges, revealing that most of them had just been hiding. Yay, more bloody characters to forget about. The one to note is someone they refer to as the director, who appears to be ill and also appears to know more than he's saying. They find themselves a new hideout. You know what? This isn't massively important, but I've been looking for an excuse to talk about it, so random tangents go. If you've read any apocalypse manga, or well, any manga set in the modern day, you might well have seen these places, at least on the sidelines, referred to as karaoke palaces. Karaoke in Japan is way different to what people think of when they hear the term in general. It's not one drunk bloke standing in front of a crowd singing Billy Joel while everyone waits patiently for him to stop. It's an entire room of people belting out Billy Joel instead, all boozed off their asses and full of dried squid. So, let's say it's Friday night. You've just had a work dinner where drinks were served. Now you and maybe a dozen co-workers, ever so slightly buzzed, have some disposable income burning a hole in your pockets, and decide to take this show on the road. So, you head on down the street to a huge garish building with karaoke on the sign. You enter, pay flat fee, which is actually pretty reasonable. Generally, this will include nomihodai or all you can drink, and you're given a room for 2 hours as well as a colossal pitcher of beer. It's comfy, private, and clean. The only time anyone will hassle you is when you want more to drink or some snacks. There's generally an extensive list of songs, both Japanese and English, and more modern systems also have auto-tune and correction, which is just great. Karaoke palaces have dozens of these rooms, occasionally hundreds, and it's kind of a question mark how they stay in business, although they do seem to do business, so I don't know. They can also range from really fancy to pretty tatty. One interesting little thing to note is that karaoke palaces have dark rumors about them, to the extent that school kids are utterly banned from the premises. A lot are, allegedly, owned by the Yakuza, or these days other criminal organizations coming out of North Africa, East Europe, or the Middle East, and yeah, that's another very complicated discussion, who, due to the privacy offered by the rooms, especially if you're in some of the seedier areas of, let's say, Kabukicho, you might be able to, hire a woman of negotiable affection to engage in other forms of entertainment or even narcotics. There's also an even darker side. Due to the privacy of these rooms, you'll probably have encountered the trope of Yankees or bozoku trying to persuade, intimidate, or even outright coerce young women to come and do karaoke with them, and you can probably guess what happens next. Outside of that, Japanese-style karaoke is a hoot, and if you get the chance to try it with some mates, I can only recommend it. Back at the karaoke palace, Mibu fills Hajime and by proxy the reader in on what the hell the SDF are doing, and we're not quite at Black Mesa yet, but we're not too far off. There's something very, very sketchy going on. They were told that there were 0 survivors, and that their mission was simply to reconnoiter and see exactly what's going on in Shibuya. However, their helicopter was attacked, and they were then trapped once the Titan fish arrived with their swarms of princesses, which also caused the fish to go insane for some reason, leading to the situation becoming untenable and most of them being wiped out. Saidaiji, now revealed to be an ex-cop, which does actually explain their connection to Uncle, further goes on to explain that Udagawa is part of the problem. It is so dense and the streets are so narrow that it is nearly impossible to move undetected, and it allows the fish to sneak up and grab them easily. He also explains that the current issue, the really big one, is the fish with human body parts extruding from their mouths. Oh, don't remind me of those things. Which they have very creatively dubbed limbs. We get the... okay, so there is a name for this narrative convention that escapes me, but we switch over to a voiceover and 2 characters engaging in some post-disaster rumpy-pumpy as the cop continues to narrate over them, explaining why the limbs are so dangerous. And okay, I cannot show you much of this sequence at all, either by the manga or you will have to use your imaginations, because holy crap. So, how would I explain this? Well, if you've seen that one VHS segment, you know, the one with Ratma, where the guy gets his face melted off and his eyes boil out. Yeah, that one. Well, just imagine that, where both of these characters are suddenly ripped open from the inside and begin to spawn smaller fish. It appears to be some kind of mass impregnation by ? But it is lethal and undetectable. A fishy touch of death. Let's just say it's one of the goriest sequences in this already gory manga, and it goes on for a while, as survivor after survivor just suddenly bursts open and bloodily gives birth to fish, pouring out of them, dragging organs and viscera. Just, oh man, it is nauseating. They then start attacking the other survivors, so it's basically the spawn broodlings of the goldfish world. One of the survivors, a big chap that we've seen here and there, prepares to jump out of a window, but another pair of limbs appear. They are now well and truly trapped. Hajime takes cover in a karaoke booth, with a frumpy, nondescript girl in a heavy coat, using the table to block the door, but the fish burst through and just all drop dead simultaneously. Where? They head out and find that this has happened all over the building. Just masses and masses of dead fish. We learn that in the attack, around half the group died, some giving birth to fish and some being attacked by the new fish. They are left with 17 members. They discuss what just happened and find that they're even more confused when they combine the information they have. Nobody recalls an incident where all the nearby fish died like that. The limbs and the lethal spawning of fish that does seem connected to them is both inexplicable and inconsistent. Sometimes people, much as with Hajime and Saidaiji, can touch them and get away fine. In other cases, the spawning begins nearly immediately. In yet other cases, it occurs significantly later. Even stranger, one of these survivors spawned fish and had never even seen a limb. Clearly, there's more to this than what they thought. Regardless, despair and low-grade panic are the name of the game. They are stuck. Hajime is also no closer to finding his friends, when all of a sudden, Kaoru comes through on Mibu's walkie-talkie. Where? How? The message is staticky and garbled, and all they can discern is that they're under attack by fish and are by the school. Mibu clicks as to what's going on and explains what must have happened. When their chopper went down, it crashed into a schoolyard. The others must have found the wreck and inside it a walkie-talkie and used it to call. Coincidental as all hell, but okay. Mibu continues, saying that the chopper is full of all kinds of useful stuff. Weapons, supplies, and best of all, a tank. Wait, what? This cannot be real. Like, I know helicopters can carry some insane things, but they can't possibly... Well, I guess I'll shut my stupid word mouth. Huh. They continue to discuss this and begin to formulate a plan, although it's rather a desperate one. The school is on the other side of Udagawa, and it's going to be a hell of a fight getting there. But once they do, they will collect the supplies, fire up the tank, and get the hell out of Dodge. They then fall to arguing. This plan is just too bug-nuts insane and risky to work. They are all going to die. They have to come up with something that is less this. However, Hajime chimes up and tells them to nut up or shut up. This is the situation. They are trapped. The hideout won't last. They need to go hard and go now. And that settles it. In 30 minutes, the desperate Udagawa escape plan begins. And then it's ride or die. But trust me, they have no idea what it is that's waiting for them out there in the night. But that will have to wait until next time. Anyways, before we finish for the day, I just want to say a big owl thanks, as always, to our amazing patrons, and I guess our channel members too. Always forget about you chaps and chapettes, I'm sorry, without whom this video almost certainly would not exist. I'm not kidding, so yeah, if you're looking for someone to be grateful for this, these people are your first stop. Cheshire Quill, Hamwise the Stout, BK, Taylor Smith, Ang, Alice Teacup, Sam Glasper, Mike, Brendan, Majestic, The Spilled Milk, Brendan, Kamarian Lindsay, Taylor Smith, Tak2M, Seffet, Molly McEvoy, Miuhaku, John Knepp, Huna Hexchen, Adclaire Andrew, Nate Corbin, Fluffy Burb, Camoleon, Endymion, Jake, Lance Goebel, Empress, Simone, Squid, The Hedgehog Gamer, Rafferty, Hashtag Hermit, Yorgborg, William, Catstown, Oishipan, RJ Grendelsire, Erin Arnold, Callie Caris, Lightspeed, Sallyface, Mootle, Jalen R, Mike, Chilled Ice, Ranger Danger, Rose Montgomery, Inukia Koji, John Knepp, Kel Core, Opinion Custard, Robert Dote, Wargle, Hunting for R2D2, Piece of Yeast, Lee, Eleanor, Crazy, Question Man 6, and Cheddar. I'm also sure that there's at least one person I've forgotten, so to you, my apologies and thanks anyway. I also want to say an even special thanks to our two Aubade patrons, Jathis and introducing Fogweaver. That is so damn generous, you two. Massive thanks. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment and all that good jazz. It really does help the video out in terms of the bloody algorithm, and otherwise, if you want to support this channel, please consider patroning up. You'll get access to some pretty fun perks like exclusive emotes on the Discord, a patrons only chat, early access to videos, an exclusive video with probably more on the way, my book, and a few other things. White Whistle and Aubade patrons can also commission videos and deep dives, and patrons as a whole do have a lot of input on what manga I cover on this channel. So if there's anything in particular you would like to see, well, that's your chance. If you do fancy supporting us in other ways, Mrs. Owl's art commissions are still open. So if you're looking for some art as an early Valentine's gift or something, or just an OC, all of her links are, as always, in the description. Cheers, my friends, and thanks again. Until next time, this is the Owl, signing off.